The day humanity walked out of the Galactic Forum, I was there perched on my observation node in the upper gallery, mandibles clicking softly as I recorded what I assumed would be another tedious session of bureaucratic droning. My name is Vekthar, and I've been documenting galactic politics for 3 centuries. Trust me when I say I've seen it all. Or, I thought I had. The Forum Chamber was its usual spectacle of controlled chaos. 700 species crammed into a space designed for 500, because apparently nobody considered that rapid expansion might require, a bigger room. The Zelthani delegates were arguing about trade route percentages. The Mortian Collective was filing their 9,000th complaint about asteroid mining regulations, and somewhere in the back, a Druuvian representative had fallen asleep and was snoring in 3-part harmony. Standard Tuesday stuff. Then Ambassador Keiko Tanaka stood up. Now you have to understand something about humans. They're weird. Not in the oh how quirky way the tourism boards advertise, but genuinely disturbingly weird. They're one of the few species that evolved as persistence hunters, which means their idea of hunting involves jogging after something until it literally dies from exhaustion. They're made of meat that bruises if you look at it wrong. Yet they'll throw themselves into danger for the stupidest reasons. They have a death world that actively tries to kill them, filled with weather patterns that can snap trees like twigs and microscopic organisms that dissolve flesh, and their response was to domesticate wolves and invent spicy food, for fun. But in the Forum, they'd always been diplomatic, cautious even, polite to a fault, always seeking consensus, never raising their voices above a respectful murmur. Model galactic citizens, if a bit boring. Keiko stood there in her crisp black suit, dark hair pulled back in that severe style human females seem to favor for formal occasions, and she didn't say a word, just stood there, hands clasped behind. The chancellors, all 15 of them, sat in their elevated podiums, looking mildly annoyed. Keiko smiled. Not a friendly smile. Humans have about 40 different types of smiles, and I've learned to distinguish most of them. This was the smile that means someone is about to ruin your entire day while maintaining perfect courtesy. Terrifying. "Thank you, Chancellor," she said, her voice carrying that artificial calm that should have been everyone's first warning. "I'll be brief. After careful consideration and consultation with our government, the Terran Commonwealth is formally withdrawing from the Galactic Forum, effective immediately. I swear, you could have heard a quantum particle decay in the silence that followed. Then the chamber exploded, and I mean that almost literally. The Zelthani started shrieking in their ultrasonic range, which made half the species grab their auditory organs in pain. The Corvan delegation leaped to their feet, all 6 arms gesticulating wildly. Chancellor Brute's skin went from magenta to a shade of purple I'd never seen before, which my database helpfully informed me indicated existential dread. You can't. There are procedures," Brute sputtered, his translator struggling to keep up with his rapid-fire speech. "You can't simply withdraw. The treaties, the trade agreements, the mutual defense pacts. Actually," Keiko said, pulling out a datapad with the kind of casual confidence that made my sensory nodes tingle with second-hand anxiety. According to Article 47, subsection 12, paragraph 9 of the Forum Charter, which, by the way, was written by the Drazen Principality 600 years ago, and hasn't been updated since, any member species may withdraw provided they give, let me see, appropriate notice to the assembled body. I believe standing up and announcing our withdrawal in front of all of you constitutes appropriate notice, wouldn't you say? Oh, she was enjoying this. I could tell by the way her eyes crinkled slightly at the corners. Another human expression I'd learned to read. Amusement mixed with vindication. Chancellor M. Vera, a usually level-headed Cassian whose crystalline form typically radiated calm blue tones, was now pulsing an alarmed orange. But why? What has prompted this drastic action? If there are grievances, we can address them through proper channels. Proper channels, Keiko repeated, and now her smile had vanished entirely. Like the proper channels we used when requesting action on the Torvan pirate raids? The raids that killed 43 human freighter crews over the last 2 years? The proper channels where our requests were taken under advisement and then buried under committee reviews for 18 months? A Torvan delegate, I recognized him as Skrell, notorious for his families. Let's call them entrepreneurial ventures, shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Or perhaps, Keiko continued, her voice getting quieter, in that way humans do when they're truly angry, because of course they get more dangerous when they're quiet. Why wouldn't they? You mean the proper channels we used when the Zell Concordat blockaded our mining colony on Kepler 442b, demanding tribute for protection. The proper channels that resulted in a vote of, what was it? Ah yes, further study required. Still waiting on that study, by the way. Been 14 months. A human male I recognized as Admiral Lucas Cortez, built like a combat mech, and sporting a scar that ran from his left temple to his jaw, stood up from the Terran delegation. He didn't say anything, just stood there with his arms crossed, staring at the assembly with eyes that had clearly seen combat. The message was clear: we're done talking. This is madness, shrieked Representative Zilkor of the Mercantile Guild, his 12 eye stalks waving in agitation. The economic ramifications alone: humanity controls 30% of the rare earth exports, 45% of agricultural production in the outer colonies, and you're the primary manufacturer of medical supplies. You can't just leave. Watch us, Keiko said simply. That's when Dr. Asha Patel stood, the human representative for scientific cooperation, a woman whose work on trans-dimensional physics had literally won her the forum's highest scientific honor just 3 years ago. We gave you chances, she said softly, and somehow her quiet disappointment was worse than anger. We asked for help defending our people. We asked for fair treatment under forum law. We asked for basic respect, and we were ignored, delayed, or outright dismissed, every single time. You're being overdramatic, Chancellor Brute said, though his skin color suggested he didn't quite believe his own words. There have been delays, yes, but that's simply how governance works at this scale. 18 human colonies have been attacked in the last 5 years, Admiral Cortez said, and his voice carried the kind of weight that comes from delivering bad news to families who've lost loved ones. Attacked by pirates you refuse to stop, by predatory species you refuse to sanction, by economic cartels you refuse to regulate. We've lost 4,000 civilians. 4,000. And your response has been to form committees. The Mortian Collective's lead representative, an ancient creature named Thoris whose wisdom was supposedly legendary, spoke up. But surely we can negotiate. Negotiate what? Keiko asked. You've had 5 years to negotiate. Here's what happens now. In 72 hours, all Terran Commonwealth ships will cease operating under forum jurisdiction. All trade agreements go back to bilateral negotiations, species by species, case by case. All military cooperation agreements are void. All technology sharing programs are suspended. All diplomatic embassies will close except for the bare minimum required to maintain basic relations. The humans are bluffing, I heard someone mutter from the Drazen section. They need us more than we need them. Keiko heard it too. Human hearing is absurdly good, and her smile returned. That dangerous smile. Ambassador Yulgren, of the Drazen Principality, thank you for that assessment. Allow me to clarify something. We don't need you, at all. Humanity has survived ice ages, supervolcano eruptions, asteroid impacts, and a dozen self-inflicted near extinctions. We domesticated fire when we were still living in caves. We split the atom before we could travel between stars. We've been practicing isolation, innovation, and sheer stubborn survival for 200,000 years. We'll be fine. She paused, letting that sink in, then continued. But you, let's see. The Drazen Principality imports 92% of its food from human agricultural colonies. The Corvin Assembly's entire medical system runs on human-manufactured supplies. The Zelthany Trade Consortium moves 70% of its goods through human-controlled shipping lanes. The Mortian Collective's defense grid uses human-designed quantum encryption. Shall I continue? I was frantically taking notes, my sensory nodes working overtime because this was history being made, and not the boring kind. This is extortion, someone shouted. No, Dr. Patel said firmly. Extortion is what we've been enduring. This is consequence. Chancellor Umvera was desperately trying to restore order, her crystalline form now pulsing between orange alarm and purple panic. Please, Ambassador Tanaka, surely we can find a compromise. We tried compromise, Keiko said. For 5 years we tried. We sent diplomatic notes. We filed formal complaints. We proposed legislation. We offered aid. We showed flexibility, patience, and good faith, and we were taken for granted. She gathered her materials, placing them carefully in her briefcase. So now we're going home. Good luck with your committees. And this is the part that still gives me secondary tremors when I think about it. Every single human in the chamber stood up in perfect unison. 53 humans from dozens of different departments and colonies, moving as one, and began walking toward the exits. "Wait," Chancellor Brute called out, his voice cracking slightly. "You can't. We need time to. The transition alone will take years of planning." Ambassador Tanaka paused at the doorway, looked back over her shoulder, and said words that would echo through galactic history. "You had 5 years. We're done waiting. Oh, and one more thing. That defense satellite network protecting the Forum's primary trade routes from the null zone incursions, the one that's prevented 7 major breaches in the last 3 years, that's human-built, human-maintained, and human-operated. It shuts down in 72 hours. Enjoy your committee meetings." Then they left, just walked out. Every human, from ambassadors to junior aides, filing out of the chamber in complete silence, while 700 species sat frozen in shock. I remember thinking, in that moment of stunned quiet, that surely this was a negotiating tactic, a dramatic gesture meant to force concessions. Humans were supposed to be rational, diplomatic, willing to compromise. That was before the first 48 hours. Let me paint you a picture of how fast everything fell apart. And by fell apart, I mean collapsed into a screaming vortex of chaos that made the Dark Ages look organized. Hour 6. The Corvin Assembly discovered that their entire pharmaceutical supply chain was human-dependent. Not just mostly human, but literally every single critical medication was either manufactured by humans or required human-supplied precursor compounds. Their health minister, a normally composed individual named Retkus, appeared on Galactic News looking like someone had told him his species was extinct, which, medically speaking, they might be in about 6 months if they couldn't source alternatives. Hour 12. The shipping lanes went dark. Not all of them, just the ones humanity had been quietly maintaining, securing and patrolling for the last decade. Turns out, when humans say they control 70% of galactic shipping, they're being modest. Within half a day, insurance rates for non-human cargo vessels quadrupled because nobody had realized just how much pirate activity the human navy had been suppressing, for free, without asking for credit. Because apparently that's just what they did. Hour 24. The Zelthani stock markets crashed, all 7 of them simultaneously, which shouldn't even be mathematically possible. Traders were leaping from their hover platforms in despair. 3 different Zelthani economic ministers resigned, and their premier, a pompous individual named Trelvix, who'd once called humanity useful servants of galactic commerce, was seen being dragged into an emergency legislative session while screaming something about unforgivable betrayal. The irony was completely lost on him. Hour 36. Remember those defense satellites protecting the Forum's trade routes from the null zone? They shut down. Exactly on schedule. Exactly as promised. The first null zone incursion happened 7 hours later. A swarm of those crystalline entities that eat metal and consider most organic life to be crunchy snacks. The Forum's defense fleet scrambled to respond and discovered that their coordination software, their tactical prediction algorithms, and about 40% of their weapon systems were, anyone want to guess, human-designed, with human-controlled access codes, which were no longer being shared. The battle lasted 18 hours. The Forum lost 37 ships. The null zone entities were eventually driven back, but not before they'd consumed 3 cargo stations and a small mining colony. The survivors were traumatized, the military command was humiliated, and everyone was suddenly horrifyingly aware of just how much humanity had been doing behind the scenes. I was still documenting everything, of course. Professional obligation and morbid fascination making for strange bedfellows. My editor kept sending me messages asking if I was exaggerating for dramatic effect. I wasn't. If anything, I was underselling it because the truth was too absurd to be believable. Hour 48. Chancellor Brute called for an emergency session. Every species showed up except one. The human embassy had been emptied, their diplomatic staff gone, their offices cleared out with the kind of military efficiency that suggested they'd been planning this for months, maybe years. All that remained was a single human security officer, a cheerful woman named Officer Rita Chen, who stood outside the sealed embassy doors with a polite smile and a plasma rifle. "Sorry," she said when the Chancellor's delegation arrived demanding entry. "Embassy's closed. Private property. You'll need to go through official channels if you want to arrange a meeting." "This is preposterous," Brute sputtered. "We're the Galactic Forum. We have authority on forum stations and registered territories." "Sure," Rita agreed pleasantly. "But this embassy is sovereign Terran soil under the Vienna Convention analogues that you all signed. So, no, you don't have authority here. Have a nice day." She even waved. The humiliation on Brute's face was something I wish I'd captured in higher resolution. By hour 72, 3 things had become crystal clear to everyone in the galaxy. First, humanity had been holding galactic civilization together with duct tape and quiet competence for longer than anyone had realized. Medical supplies, technology, agriculture, shipping, defense, research, they'd embedded themselves so thoroughly into every system that extracting them was like removing someone's skeleton and expecting them to keep standing. Second, they'd been planning this. The speed, the coordination, the systematic shutdown of services. This wasn't a tantrum. This was a strategic withdrawal executed with military precision. Every human asset, every critical position, every essential service had a contingency for removal. They'd built exit ramps into everything they did, just in case. Because apparently, when you're a species that survived multiple extinction events, you plan for worst-case scenarios. Third, and most terrifying, they weren't angry anymore. They were done. Let me explain why that's worse. Angry can be negotiated with, bargained with, appeased. Done means they've moved past emotion into cold calculation. Done means they've already grieved the loss of the relationship and are moving on. Done is final. I watched it play out over the next 2 weeks like some kind of slow-motion catastrophe. The Drazen Principality sent a delegation to Earth, not the Forum. Earth directly to negotiate emergency food shipments. They were received with polite professionalism, given a tour of human agriculture facilities, and shown detailed proposals for trade agreements. Fair trade agreements. The kind where both parties benefit equally. The kind the Drazen had been refusing to accept for 5 years because they thought they could strong-arm better terms. The delegation returned pale and shaken, reporting that the humans had been nice, friendly, even, but utterly, completely unwilling to budge on terms. They smiled while they gutted our negotiating position, the lead negotiator reported. The Mortian Collective tried a different approach, appealing to shared scientific curiosity. Dr. Asha Patel herself took that meeting, which gave them hope, right up until she presented them with a bill for 17 years of complementary research assistance, quantum computing access, and technology transfers. "We're happy to continue collaboration," she'd said sweetly, "once the outstanding balance is addressed. We accept payment in rare earth minerals, quantum crystals, or territorial concessions. No credit terms available." One by one, species that had taken humanity for granted discovered what it meant to negotiate with a partner who no longer needed to compromise. The Torvan pirates, remember them? The ones whose raids had killed 43 human crew members. They made the catastrophic mistake of attacking another human freighter in week 2 of the withdrawal. The freighter, the Nanjing, was a civilian vessel carrying medical supplies to a human colony. What happened next became known as the Nanjing Incident, and it's required study in military academies now. The human response wasn't a military fleet. It was 3 ships, 2 frigates and a destroyer, commanded by a terrifyingly calm woman named Captain Yuki Tanaka, Keiko's younger sister, as it turned out, which explained so much. They didn't issue warnings. They didn't file complaints with the Forum. They simply hunted down every single pirate base, every supply depot, every safe harbor the Torvans had operated for the last 50 years, and destroyed them. Methodically, efficiently, completely. The Torvan government screamed to the Forum about human aggression and unprovoked attacks. Admiral Cortez appeared via holo-transmission at the emergency session, his scarred face showing about as much emotion as a brick wall. "Unprovoked," he said quietly. "You killed our people for 2 years while the Forum studied the situation. We asked for protection. We were denied. So we're protecting ourselves. If you have complaints about our methods, I suggest you file them with—" "Oh wait, we're not Forum members anymore. Not our jurisdiction. If you want to discuss this, you can arrange a meeting through official diplomatic channels. I believe the wait time for appointments is currently, let me check, 18 months. Enjoy. Then he disconnected. The Torvins didn't dare attack another human ship. Ever. But here's the thing that really got me. The thing that made me realize humanity had played a game nobody else even knew was happening. They weren't trying to hurt the galaxy. They were just leaving. Politely. Professionally. With proper notice. Every species that approached them with fair terms, with genuine respect, with actual partnership, they got agreements. Good ones. The Cassian cluster, which had always treated humans as equals, found themselves with preferential trade status, technology sharing programs, and mutual defense pacts. The Vreel collective, a minor species that had supported human proposals in the Forum, suddenly had access to human medical research that extended their lifespan by 30%. Humanity was rewarding friends and charging everyone else market rates. It was capitalism as foreign policy, and it was brutally effective. 6 weeks after the walkout, Chancellor Brute resigned. His skin had gone a permanent shade of gray that medical scans couldn't explain. Chancellor Mivra took over, and her first act was to send an official diplomatic request to Earth. Can we talk? The response came from Ambassador Keiko Tanaka herself, now operating as Earth's Secretary of External Affairs. Of course, we've always been willing to talk. Bring proposals, not excuses. Bring partnership terms, not demands. Bring respect, not assumptions. We'll be here. That's when I understood. Humanity hadn't left the galactic community. They just stopped being the janitors, the peacekeepers, the unpaid laborers holding everything together while being taken for granted. They were still there, still present, still willing to engage, on their terms now. The Forum still exists, but it's smaller, diminished. About a third of species have bilateral treaties with humanity that supersede Forum authority. Another third are desperately trying to negotiate them. The rest are either too proud or too foolish to adapt. Me, I'm still documenting everything. It's the story of the century. The day the galaxy's most cooperative, diplomatic, patient species said enough, and everyone realized we'd mistaken kindness for weakness. I've interviewed hundreds of beings for my historical record. The most telling quote came from a Zelthani economist named Velsha, who lost everything in the market crash but somehow found perspective. We thought they needed us, she told me, her voice carrying the weight of expensive wisdom. We thought because they were nice, because they helped, because they compromised. We thought that meant they were weak, dependent, desperate for our approval. We were fools. They didn't need us. They were being nice because they chose to be, because that's who they are. And when we mistook their choice for obligation, they simply stopped choosing us. She laughed, a bitter, knowing sound. You know what the humans taught us? That there's a difference between being civilized and being civilized too. We forgot which one we were. I archived that quote. Put it right at the beginning of my historical account, actually. The galaxy is learning to function without taking humanity for granted. Some are learning faster than others. The smart ones are building genuine partnerships, treating Earth as equals, respecting boundaries. The rest? Well, they're finding out what happens when you lose something precious by treating it as worthless. And humanity. They're doing fine, exactly like Keiko said they would. Thriving, actually. Turns out, when you stop giving away your labor, resources, and expertise for free, your economy does pretty well. Last week, I received an invitation to visit Earth for an interview series. They want the galactic perspective documented for their historical records. I accepted immediately, professional curiosity, of course, but also because I've learned something important over these last few months. When humans invite you to their home, you go, not because you have to, but because they don't invite people they don't respect. I'll be leaving next week. I've already started learning proper human etiquette. Apparently, there's this thing called small talk that's important, and you're supposed to compliment the food even if it's trying to set your mouth on fire, and there are 17 different types of coffee, and yes, the difference matters. I'm terrified. I'm excited. And I'm grateful I'll get to see their world not as a representative of the species that took them for granted, but as someone who documented what happened when they stopped letting us. The galaxy is changing. Humanity changed it. Not through force, not through war, but by simply refusing to be undervalued anymore. And honestly, it's about damn time.